Hey everybody, Howard Jacobson here. And today I want to talk about being a perfectionist. And I really like when people are perfectionists. Except there's one problem with that, is that perfectionists tend to fail. And they tend to be really hard on themselves and others. And the slightest slip up or mistake can cause everything to come crashing down. That said, I don't really hold by the mantra that we hear so often, progress, not perfection. Because the way that goes is, okay, so I've set up this goal for myself. Let me get let me see the comments. If anyone's listening, can type hello, so I make sure the comments are working. The thing about not being a perfectionist is, so you have your goal. Okay, I'm not going to eat, the cheeseburger, and then you eat a cheeseburger, and you're like, tomorrow's another day. Progress, not perfection, and so you completely lose the opportunity to learn from the experience. But that's not the worst of it, right? Because we all have experiences that we don't learn from. We don't learn all the time, and I'd argue that we want to be strategic in really laser focusing on moments of our lives to extract meaning so that we can be better in the future. We don't want to be doing it every single second. Here's the bigger problem with being okay with slip-ups. It's just a math problem. So if you are 99% compliant with your rules, with the rules that you set up, that you agree upon, that you say, this is how I want to live in order to achieve the outcomes that I want to achieve and in order to be the sort of person that I want to be. This is what I want to do. And you are 99% compliant. What's the problem with that? The problem is the 1% where you're not. Because I remember reading a book a long time ago about the human mind, and it was talking about ceiling tiles. And I was a little kid when I read this book, and I was still living at home in South Orange, New Jersey. And my bedroom, we've got the ceiling tiled, these like 12 by 12 acoustic tiles, and a couple of them were damaged. And I don't know how that happened. It could not have been me playing racquetball in my room, clearly. So somehow those got damaged, and I'd lay in bed, and of course my eye would be drawn to those two of the 196 tiles. Yes, I did count them. That's the kind of boy I was. The two of the 196 tiles in my bedroom, and my eye would always be drawn to those, right? So if we're good 99% of the time, our brains are going to be drawn to the 1%. And that tells a story. And the story that it tells is, well, so 99% is fine. And 99% is fine, right? If we're just talking about, on the grand scheme of things, 99% is pretty darn close to 100. The trouble is that it compounds, so that our 99% becomes our new normal. That becomes our new 100%. And so the next day, we're 99% compliant with that. So now we're down to like 98%. And you can see after 2 weeks, 3 weeks, a month, we have slid. We have slippery sloped ourselves all the way to essentially an unrecognizable lifestyle. And what's missing is the bright line that we cross. It's not that we demand perfection. It's that there are consequences for imperfection. Now, there are consequences for imperfection anyway. The consequences of imperfection is if I eat some crap, my body is going to process it like crap, and I'm going to feel like crap. I might put on some weight, or I might slow down the weight loss that I was going for. My numbers might not move. I might not be able to get off the meds. I might feel sluggish and unfocused the next day, whatever our consequences are. And obviously, if we have rules, they are to protect us from certain consequences. We don't just make arbitrary rules that have no basis in reality. We make rules, ideally, that protect us from things. And so, of course, there are negative consequences, but the negative consequences generally take a while to accrue and to be noticed. Whereas, so if we're breaking our rules and okay with it, where there's no bright line and there's no immediate cognitive, behavioral, emotional, psychological, mindset consequences for what we've just done. And so we're basically telling ourselves this rule doesn't matter. If I follow the rule 99 times out of 100, then I'm not really following the rule. I'm doing it out of expedience. I'm doing it out of convenience, but I'm not doing it out of conviction, right? If I don't rob 99 banks out of 100, I'm still a bank robber. If I don't steal the tip from 99 out of 100 servers at a restaurant, I'm still a scummy thief. Right? So that's the issue. So what I want us to do is get the advantages of perfectionism and the advantages of imperfectionism in the same packet. So how do we do that? And the answer is become a low-achieving perfectionist. So the goal is, so let's imagine. Can we swing this over here to the board? That here's my bullseye. Okay. Right? Oh, no, I just blocked it. That circle is my. Come on. Damn it. Okay. That circle is my bullseye. And what I want to do is every day I want to, imagine this, I'm doing archery. I want to hit the bullseye, or at the very least, hit the target. And I find this week is particularly hard, particularly challenging. And for some reason, so that's like I'm back here, I'm too far away, and now I'm throwing things at it, and missing the target. And then, so if I'm like, oh, well, okay, I can miss the target, that's okay. Then pretty soon the target ceases to mean anything. And I'm just throwing it all over the place. So in that case, if you decide, you know what, it is simply impossible right now for me to adhere to the rules that I've set up. My choices are to keep breaking the rules or to go more lenient on my rules. Which do you think is better? Which do you think is more highly correlated with long-term success? Just breaking the rules or changing the rules so that I'm no longer breaking them? Right. The answer is don't break rules. Because when you break a rule, you're giving yourself the message that I'm a rule breaker, that these things don't matter to me. I'm still a bank robber. I'm still a thief. Just because I don't do it every time doesn't change what it is. Whereas if you say, okay, you know what? I'm going to change the rules so that I succeed. And then say, this is now where I live. All this area here is now okay. Now what's gonna happen? Right? So obviously you're not going to have the same kind of results as you had in here, probably. Now you may find that you do. You may find, okay, well, I've been trying to run 10 miles a day, but actually walking 4 miles a day is better for me. You may discover that you've just been too hard on yourself. Right? Or you may discover, okay, so now I'm out here and maybe I'm here for a week or a month and things are still cool. I'm still moving in the direction I want to move. I'm still succeeding in terms of the results that I want, the path that I'm taking. Or you might discover, you know what, out here, I'm actually slowing down my progress, or I've stopped and I'm static and I'm treading water, or I'm going backwards. And all of those are valid, useful pieces of information because they allow you to deal with reality. And so you can then say, well, okay, so my rules, the ones that I'm following, the ones that I'm willing to follow, are getting me towards my goal, keeping me where I am, or moving me farther away from my goal. And now I get to decide, do I want to ramp them up? Do I want those new goals? Do I want the new rules that are going to get me the goals that I want? And if you decide, yeah, you know what? I was happier when I was following those other rules. Now you'll come back to them. You can tighten them up, and you're actually going to be more likely to adhere to them because now you have a closer, direct connection with why you created them in the first place. I don't have these rules because I have to. I have these rules because that's what I want to do. I choose them. I selected them to make me happy because now I'm not following them and I'm not as happy. So you have what we call in the trade motivation, what my friend Peter Bregman calls ownership. That it's really clear now if you say, okay, I'm going to let my rules lapse or become more lenient, and then I'm less happy and less successful and I feel less good. And then you go, you know what? I see why I set up those other rules. And when you tighten them back in again, you own them. It's a very different feeling than, yeah, I need to lose weight. I better give up on the cheeseburgers. And when you are lenient with the rules, you know what? There is still area outside this. So now you could still, let's say cheeseburgers are still out of it, but maybe a Caesar salad with chicken breast is in. I'm not suggesting this. I'm not advocating for it. I'm using it as an example. Cheeseburger out, chicken breast, Caesar salad in. You may still get the urge for a cheeseburger. But now, theoretically, it's easier to say no because you have a larger universe of things to say yes to, but you still get to win the fight through about the cheeseburger. You still get to practice applying your rules, saying no, winning a fight through, creating when-then plans. And so actually, even though it may look like you're moving backwards, you're actually building the skills, the behavioral skills, the habit change skills that are the ultimate foundation for success, right? So imagine that I could wave a magic wand. Here, let's give you the full visual here. Oh, they're not a pair. Damn it. These two. Imagine that I could wave a magic wand and suddenly, tinkle, tinkle, imbue upon you perfect ability to adhere to your dietary protocol. You no longer slip up. You no longer have cravings. You no longer make mistakes. You're perfect. How long would it take you in that fantasy scenario to make significant progress towards your goals? Towards your goals about weight or health or feeling good or looking good, whatever your goals are. Imagine you had 100% control, that your intentions became your actions. It wouldn't take you very long to make a ton of progress, right? It would be a lot shorter than if you had the world's best rules that you weren't following, or you weren't following consistently, or you weren't following reliably, right? Because if you follow them 99% of the time, you are always in doubt. Is this the time I'm going to break? Is this the time I'm going to slip up? Or you're like always making a decision. Always having to decide, is this the time? Right? Because you haven't made it non-negotiable. So when you increase that circle, you're actually speeding up your process of not the details of your diet or your movement or your meditation or your stress management or your sleep hygiene, but you are growing the fundamental muscles upon which everything else rests. You are building your emotional courage, you're building your fight through muscle, you're building your discernment muscle, your argue with the inner pig muscle, and those are the really important ones. That's far more important than what you had for lunch today in almost every case. So Dan says the pleasure trap is a tough one to escape. Been there a couple times. So the pleasure trap, right, is this idea that our bodies are programmed to want junk food and to sit on the couch all day, because that's how all creatures survive, by seeking pleasure, by avoiding exertion and pain. And, there is a lot of truth to that. And it's overly deterministic. And it becomes a story that actually keeps people stuck. So I love the concept, and I think the book has done a great service. And it's also become a kind of story for people to explain why they can't succeed. And the truth is that we have pleasure traps, hello Ron, and we have the pleasure principle that can act in our favor, right? When the pleasure becomes social, when it becomes spending time with other people, when it becomes self-esteem and movement. So we can have pleasure traps, and we can also have whatever the opposite of a trap is, pleasure parades or pleasure progress. And we know we don't have to act on our impulses, right? We know that we can experience bodily urges without giving into them, and we do so all the time. And we do so when there are extreme negative consequences to doing so. Most of us, I believe, don't immediately run around acting inappropriately when we have a sexual attraction to someone that our vows, our culture, our habits, and our society tells us not to act upon. Right? Now, interestingly enough, we see in the news that people with sufficient power sometimes fall into that pleasure trap, that they don't have a break on their, I'm hopefully assuming that some of these people would like to be more decent human beings. But the fact is, the more power you have, the fewer constraints on behavior, the harder it can be. So if we have a society telling us don't rob that bank, we can do it. If we have a society telling us don't push the little old lady in front of a bus or take the candy from a baby, we can do it. And we internalize this stuff as well. So my friend Dan Ariely from Duke University has done some really interesting studies of the honesty box. So in his office, they have, a fridge and a kitchen with stuff like, coffee, tea, chocolate, whatever. And the whole office chips in to replenish all the stuff in the office. And so if you get a mug of coffee or a cup of tea or a piece of chocolate or a hot cocoa or something, you're expected to put $1 in. You're expected to do your part. And they found in a whole bunch of experiments that they could influence the extent to which people did it by, for example, having a mirror that faced people behind the honesty box. So when they walked into the kitchen, they saw themselves. That made people much more honest. They found that if you drew a picture with a pair of eyes looking at you, that people became more honest. There's a whole book. Here, I'll show you the book. Where is it? I'm still here. Don't go away. I just redid all my books, and I can't. It's a paperback, small paperback. It's in the, dang. Can't find it. Hope nobody stole my honesty book. It's, anyway, it's called the dishonesty, the honest truth about why we, here it is. The honest truth about, see, it was a small book, so it was in the small shelf. The honest truth about dishonesty. And it's a whole bunch of experiments on when we are honest and when we are dishonest, when we break rules and when we follow them. And it turns out that other people watching is not often the key. It's more like there are so many opportunities for self-gain that we don't take because we're not that sort of person. So, oh, Levy, cool. I would love to see you at Green Fair tomorrow. So we can learn this. And we can learn from it so that we don't have to fear the pleasure trap when we create within ourselves an identity that is counter, that is incompatible with the behavior we don't want to do. Identity trumps urges. So yeah, the pleasure trap is real, but we have tools for overcoming it that most people do not know about and underestimate. So that's all for me right now. I'm going to call it 8. Anyway, it's a great book, The Honest Truth About Dishonesty. And if you also get a chance, I don't know where it's streaming now, but the Dishonesty movie that Dan Ariely co-produced, I think, and was kind of about his research is also well worth watching. They have this whole dishonesty project where they really, we look at, like, none of us is immune to lying to ourselves and others, and there are steps we can take to minimize it, and in some cases to outright eliminate it. So I'll leave you with that. Thanks for the commentary and the questions. If you have more questions, just post them anywhere. I read all comments. That helps me create new ones. Finally, we have couple more spaces left for the retreat in North Carolina coming up. And if you can't make it to that one, November 14th through 17th, me and Josh I'm calling it an intensively casual atmosphere. You can check that out at sick2fit, the number 2, sick2fit/retreat. Love to see you there. And we're going to do another one in March in New Orleans. Josh is now finding the place and getting all the details set up, so we will have that on the website very soon as well. So I wish you all a good night. I'm probably not going to be broadcasting the next 2 days. As Levy mentioned, I'll be going up to DC tomorrow. Going to be at the Reducitarian Summit in DC Friday night through Sunday. Excuse me. But I'll be back on Monday, and I wish everybody a great few days, great weekend, and see you again soon. Take care.